Oops. And today I have Katie Ericson on the live talk show. So I'm just waiting for Katie to get on the live talk show. I hope everyone is doing amazing out there on Facebook. I'm bringing her on right now.
Hi. Can you
Hi,
hear me
Katie.
okay? Can
Can
you
you
hear
hear
me
me?
okay? Oh, yeah.
I can't hear you.
Let me see. Can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hi, Katie. So honored and happy and grateful that you could join my Adoption Live talk show today.
Thank
And Katie is from Minneapolis, in the United States, and
you.
she was adopted from India. So please share your who you are and where you're from and your story.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. So I'm Katie. I currently live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was adopted at a pretty young age, 16 months from Hyderabad, India, and I've never really had an opportunity to share my story before. So I'm really excited, and thanks for having me today. I just to begin my story, I was adopted at a young age. Basically, my family, my parents struggled with infertility, and so they were looking at different adoption agencies and came upon India. Um, and I just ended up in their family. But in the time from then and now, it's been such a blessing, but it's also been difficult. And I will talk about that more as we continue on. But that's kind of the big recap of my adoption story.
Mhm. Okay, so you were 15 months old when you came to United States,
Yes.
and how was it to be, adopted, but also growing up as a kid and a child and a teenager? If
Mhm.
you can share a little bit about that,
Yeah.
share any of your
Yeah.
experiences that you had.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in a mainly a white school. I went to a private school growing up, and I was really the only, at the time, I was one of the few only people of color, and being Indian and everything. I definitely felt like an outcast. Times where I didn't fit in. People, I just felt like they would look at me differently, and I still feel that now, even to this day, but it's hasn't bothered me as much as it did as a kid, because as a kid you want to be accepted by your peers, and you want to make friends,
Yeah.
and you want to be loved by people and be accepted. And I think that's like the core foundational like roots of adoption, is to be loved and accepted, and not feel like unwanted. So I definitely felt that at times, but when I entered high school, I went to a public high school. That's when I got more diversity within my community. I saw that there was way more Indian people. Some of my good friends from high school are Indian. I
Okay.
don't always talk to them as much as I should, but yeah, I definitely remember like two or three really good friends being Indian. So that was the first kind of glimpse of hope that I wouldn't be alone, and I'm not
No.
alone. And then
No.
my community now in the suburbs of Minneapolis, there are a lot of like Indian families,
Okay.
and so I feel very connected to my community. I'm able to grab Indian food if I wanted to, like 10 minutes away. I'm able to. I believe they host some events downtown at the Capitol, like Indian cultural events. I've never been to one of those. But growing up, my mom my best friend, who's also adopted from India, we would go to a well, it's called Camp Masala in the Twin Cities, and it's basically for families and their adoptive kids from India mainly. There's some other children from like Southeast Asia, but we would go and we would be able to do like it was in the summer and it was just 3 days, but really kind of a fun like camp where we got to explore our culture, and I think that I'm really grateful for that because that kept me within my roots of being Indian, and my it was nice to do it with my mom now, and we were able to do that together. So, and with my best friend, that's some of the memories we often refer back to. So,
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. So I can understand that that you came into your family when you were
Mhm.
very young, but you also have a adopted
I
sister.
do.
Yeah,
Mhm.
can you share a little bit about her?
Yeah. So my sister, she's adopted from another country. We are very different from the way we talk about adoption, which has been interesting within our stories. I'm very open to talking about it, where she is more private about talking about it. But it's been interesting as growing up, just navigating through the concepts and topics about adoption. How I'm more open to talking about it, but she's more reserved. So but
Mm-hmm.
we still have common themes. We may just not openly share about it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because it's and that's also why I have the show here today because
Hmm.
I want adoptees to share their story and be open about it because it's not all of us that actually get a
Hmm.
chance to speak open heartedly about our thoughts and our feelings and
Hmm.
how it is to be adopted
Yeah.
because like 20 years 30 years ago people didn't speak about it. We were just becoming an adopted, we were adopted into our families,
Hmm.
but no one really spoke about the thoughts and feelings and the psychology that's behind
Yeah.
or that we are going through, and experiencing as adopted,
Yeah.
right? So I love that you share that because I was also in my family. I was supposed to have a sister and a brother that was adopted as
Hmm.
well, but unfortunately it didn't
Yeah.
happen. But and I can understand that your sister is from a different
Hmm.
country, and you don't have the same insights or experiences of being
Right.
adopted,
Hmm.
and we all have. I think sometimes we are in denial of our identity,
Yeah.
who we
Yeah.
are. um, but I want you to be open and true about it because it is our identity, right? We can't suppress our feelings and our thoughts
Right.
and
Yeah.
be who we are because we came into this life as adopted, right? But
Mhm.
the self acceptance you talked about in the beginning, it's so important that we accept who we are
Yeah.
and being blessed and grateful for how we came into this world, and then see where can we find the gift in that, to
Yeah.
be adopted. So but I also know that you went to India.
Yeah. I did.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, my family, there's four of us, my mom and dad now, and my sister and me. We went to India in 2013. I was 15 years old, around that age at the time, and it was in the perfect age window when I was able to remember it, and we were all able to just bond over it. And I'm really grateful for my parents to take me back to India and not want to kind of push it under the rug. So I'm really thankful that we are all able to share that experience. We I went through it. The trip was hosted by an adoption, like for adoptive kids from India and their families and their parents. So I got to bond with a bunch of other people from India, which I still talk to a couple to this day, which is really fun.
Mhm.
But in India, it was we went to more of the touristy places to start, and then the trip got really deep. So we went to New Delhi. We started there, and then made our way to the Taj Mahal and kind of those amazing tourist areas. And then part of the curriculum program they had was to go, if your orphanage was still open and running, to go see it. Which some of the members of my trip, theirs was still open, but mine shut down. But I was able to like still go into the building, and I was like, yeah, it's hard to describe, but it was so profound, that moment, and it's something I'll never forget. The building was so tiny, and it's just like, this is where I got my start and my beginning to this life. And the people that I don't even know, they cared for me like as much as I could. And I'm not sure how they I'm not sure how they everything they had, like their resources. I'm not sure who they were, but I mean, just the fact that they had such a heart to come and to care for me and for all the other people who were there. And I definitely just started crying when I saw my orphanage, and I get emotional talking about it to this day. But yeah, it's something that you don't just, it doesn't leave your mind. Like
No.
it's always there. And I would love to contact um the director of my orphanage, and I still have her contact information. So I would love to see if I could reach out again to her and go back one day for sure.
Yeah, you should. You
Yeah.
should go back, and it is it is. I mean, I remember when I was visiting the hospital where I was born, and then
Hmm.
the nursing home where I was,
Hmm.
and the hospital in Mumbai was recently in 2006 was it recently being reconstructed, but the only two rooms in the hospital
Hmm.
where I was in one of them wasn't. So I went up there, and they showed me the
Wow.
room, and they gave me, goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Hmm. Yeah.
it touches your soul and
Hmm.
so many levels, and just to go into the room, and for me it kind of gave me, a gratitude, a blessing, and a gift, but it's also in the same way it gave me a déjà vu, right? I felt like I've been there before,
Yeah.
right? Even though I cannot remember nothing right
Right.
from that moment,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
for you, Katie, what I mean, you said, I mean, you get emotional, but what kind of feelings did you? I mean, if you can recall the feelings
Yeah.
you had at the moment of when you were there.
Yeah. I think it was just mostly gratitude, really. I think I it what my struggles with adoption is that it's not easy, and it's not, people may look at my life from the outside and think like, oh, she has what, she's able to travel, able to do this and that. But
Mm,
when it comes down to it, it's like I still have this pain that I carry around that no one really sees. And um but I mean, it was painful being in there too, but it was gratitude. It's like that, the seesaw, like you have one extreme to the other. It was painful to be there because it's like I could have never been adopted. I don't know what would have happened to me. I could have, I mean, it's just a bunch of what ifs. And
mhm,
I think to this day that just plays throughout my mind. It's just, what if, this
mm,
happened? You just run scenarios in your brain, and it can eat you up alive. And it's like that mental part of like kind of grief and loss in a way.
mm,
So I think in that time we were there just a short amount of time, but it was painful to be there to kind of mourn my past, but it
mm,
was also such a blessing and a gratitude thing. to be there with my family now, and to know how far I've come in this life. And I was only 15 at the time, so I mean I'm 24 now, so I would love to go back, soon, and visit again, and just recall how far I've come, and that I don't know the reasons why, because a lot of people like associate adoption as being like given up, and I think that's a term that needs to be to come to light more. It's not necessarily someone giving you up. I've gotten the cliche a lot, like they wanted a better life for you, and it's like
Exactly.
I'm sure
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they had that in mind, but it hurts that they couldn't, like, if they didn't have enough resources to
So
provide and
exactly. Yeah.
nurture you, or they had other siblings, or you had other siblings, and they didn't want a girl. It's just all those factors, and it is painful, and it does
Mm.
hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we don't, it just paint a big clue in our soul because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah.
And it leaves us with a lot of questions, about our past, and we don't know the answers, and we can't get the answers, right?
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
pain, it is a suffering, right? Because
Yeah.
we can't find out, but the only thing we actually can do is find the peace within us
Hmm.
and believe that I believe that there's no mother on this planet that have a child within their
Hmm.
womb for 9 months. They're not thinking about their child
Yeah.
for 1 minute
Yeah.
when they give up the child to somebody else
Hmm.
because they're not able to take care of the child in that moment. In most cases, from my case, I think it was because of the caste system in India,
Yeah.
that we also are very aware of.
Hmm.
Because I really, but I don't know that I think my dad had a higher position as a soldier or something, that they were having an affair, or
Oh.
at least my mom was not. I don't know because it's just something I'm guessing. I've been told by spiritual people,
Hmm.
but it's just something I have a feeling about. They that was paid for my nursing home,
Hmm.
and that indicates me that my father might have been had money, but my mom didn't, and they were not married, so they couldn't keep me. They have to give me up for for adoption.
Right.
But there's so many reasons for why mothers are giving their children up for adoption. But I also know that they do it as a need because they want to provide you with a better life and a
Hmm.
better opportunity. And I don't think it's easy for any mother to give up
Yeah.
their child, to be honest.
Hmm.
But they don't aware of it, the pain and suffering that comes with that, and by giving their children up,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then you can go into discussion, should you have a child if you can't take care of it? Maybe
Right.
you should say. And
Right.
I know that, of
Hmm.
course, India is a country where fertility and sex issues is a different story than it is here
Yeah.
in the United States or in
Yeah.
Europe.
Hmm.
So it happens, right? And it
Yeah.
happens in the United States too. But my point is really to focus on, that I don't think there's a minute where mothers are not thinking about us,
Hmm.
and I know that my adopted mother, because I'm here in the United States, I mean, I know she's thinking about me. I don't know if she's the one who's actually go. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't say any names, but
Hmm.
I know there's not 1 minute where she's not thinking about
Yeah.
me, and that's what mothers do, right?
Hmm.
And I also think the self acceptance is coming down to h- how can we forgive our mothers
Yeah.
for in that moment they gave us up was what they could do in that
Yeah.
moment, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure if they had a choice of doing it differently, they would
Hmm.
do. And sometimes I also think the women in India, they have less choices than other Western women to say
Yeah.
what they really
Right.
want, right?
Right.
And sometimes I believe that it's my what I feel and knows that that was my grandparents that actually, that was taking my mother's decision
Mhm.
and not me,
Mhm.
right? So in that way, it is it's a it's difficult to talk about because it also brings so much pain and suffering in that moment.
Yeah.
But if we can, as adoptee, maybe forgive our mothers for their choices at that
Mhm.
moment, maybe that will make our life easier in some
Mhm.
ways.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so thank you for sharing. Yeah, this is
Mhm.
a really
Yeah.
powerful story, and I'm happy that you also, because this is another thing that I also feel is very important, and I talk about with as a coach,
Mhm.
about going back to the country where we're from. The culture thing, because and I don't know how it was for you to go back to India to
Mhm.
feel to meet your culture, to
Mhm.
meet your Indian
Mhm.
culture.
Yeah.
How was it for you? I mean, in that perspective, despite about seeing where you were born and having your first months of your life,
Mhm.
how was it
Yeah.
to go back and meet the Indian culture? Can you speak a little bit about that,
Yeah.
Katie?
It was amazing. It was truly I felt like I've always felt off and like out or kind of outcasted in America sometimes, but in
Yeah.
India it just felt like, you know, there I'm with my people and not in like a weird way, but in just a sense like, oh, these people look like me. I may not speak the language and I don't speak the language, but we have similarities just in our hair and kind of the things I'm missing in my
Yeah.
first story about where I get my features from,
Mhm.
that's something I am curious about. And it was just like, oh, like they have the same hair as me, the same texture, the same eyes, same skin color. It was just nice
Mhm.
to be with, that my people that yeah, my country. And I don't practice a religion, but it was cool to see the culture and sense of the food. And I mean, I can have Indian food here in America, but just experiencing it there is it was a different level. Um, and just, I just remember some of the experiences we had to do. And I really felt like we weren't necessary tourists. Like, you could tell and we were lost most of the time, but we were with our tour guide, and he wanted it to be more of an authentic experience, and I definitely thought it was. So
Mhm.
yeah, I felt so good in India, and it was a trip I will definitely never forget.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was
Yeah.
special.
Mhm. Yeah, it is, and I remember that as well. But really to find our
Mhm.
roots and see the people where we are from, the culture,
Yeah.
because I think there's a difference in being, you were raised up in America, and I was raised up in
Hmm.
Copenhagen, Denmark, but
Hmm.
we were still living in a different community that we actually came from,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's so when we are growing up, I believe that we are we are split in two different cultures because we can see that we have the Indian culture,
Hmm.
but we also have the community where we're growing up because I assume your parents are white,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah. So I was growing up with a family where I had two brothers and one sister, and they
Hmm.
were all biological. So I always felt different from them, but
Yeah.
not only the color, but I also the way I was thinking.
Hmm.
And then I had something else, but I could never really point out what it was. But
Hmm.
when I grew up, I found out that I had this two different cultures, but I couldn't identify myself with any of them. So I felt split between those two.
Mm-hmm.
But it was first when I came back to India that I actually saw and actually the awareness of having two different cultures, but actually accepting that both and see where, suddenly I understood, okay, that's why you have these good, values or personality that I didn't understand where I had them from, but I
Mm-hmm.
just knew
Mm-hmm.
that there was something within me that I had from India, but I just couldn't put finger on it. But when I went
Yeah.
to India, I could see the goodness that we have inside of us as Indian people, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And that's also why I assume when you went with your parents, that was the moment where you were ready to go back, or maybe you were the one who pushed your parents to go back to India. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. One day. Yeah.
So because I was afraid to go there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because I had short hair, and I felt that I looked Scandinavian in my way of dressing, and
Mm-hmm.
so but I experienced something very funny there, because when I'd be traveling with my parents, my father was always the one that ordered food and paid for the food and things like that. But when I was in India, they didn't speak to him. They spoke to me because I was
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
I don't know if you experienced some of the same things, but it was, for me, it was kind of funny. I mean, it was like, it's my father
Yeah.
who's paying for it. Can you
Yeah.
speak?
Or they just assume you know the language, or yeah. I think that happened to me a few times. Yeah.
And I felt like that was really funny to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And experience it for a difference. I was like, oh, good. This is just real, like.
Yeah.
So, but I like the turnaround of, the Indian people speaking to me and not my
Mm-hmm.
father.
Mm-hmm.
We had a kind of a lot of fun with that, because I
Yeah.
think my father was confused, right? And but it was also kind of, I wouldn't say strange, but it was funny to travel around in India with my parents, because
Mm-hmm.
they were looking different. Now
Yeah.
I kind of, the picture
Mm-hmm.
turned around, because now they were
Yes.
feeling different. I mean, my father has been traveling a few
Mm-hmm.
times to India. My mom as well, before I actually went there with them. But it was just funny to be there with them, and it was just a truly blessing for
Mm-hmm.
me. And the first time I actually self accepted myself, my
Mm-hmm.
color, my culture, and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So for me, I find it very important for adoptees to go back, or
Yeah.
any adopter. If it's not India, go back to China, or to really connect with the
Yeah.
roots, because
Definitely. I agree.
we feel so rootless
Mm-hmm.
as adoptee when we are interculture adoptees, going from one culture to another culture. So
Yeah.
we feel less rootless, because we don't feel we belong anywhere, right? Because we
Yeah.
can't find
Definitely.
the groundness of that. So how have rootless you, if you I know I didn't ask you that question yesterday, but
Yeah.
I don't know, it just came up in my mind right now.
Yeah.
So, how did you feel about that?
Well, I I think it's just like I mentioned, just having a bunch of why questions, like why, just why, like I don't know the beginning, and I'm curious about it, I don't know much about my story, and it's
Mm,
something that makes, especially around my birthday, that's one of the worst days of the year. And I think that's something that's not often talked about in the adoption community. I don't know how other adoptees feel, but for me, my birthday just hits me like a train. Um,
um,
it's hard, and it's something I feel, I think about it more, and I think it's just I get very emotional, thinking about my birth mom, especially on that day, and how what she went through. I mean, um giving birth, I don't know where, if I was born in a hospital or not. I don't have any of that information, but I just wonder, the start of my life, like how did I come to be? Was it, do I have a birth father? Or, it's just a bunch of questions. And how young was she, or how old was she, or was it I her first baby? Or it's just so many questions. So
Mm.
when it comes back to being rootless, it just feels on my birthday that it's just feels like I'm missing my foundation sometimes, and I'm missing. I would like to know who my birth mom is, and down to the core, I would like to know, but at the same time, it could be painful, and it could be things that I don't want to hear, and or situations I don't want to hear. But yeah, I think I would like to know, and just the fact that I probably won't know in this lifetime, um, yeah, just messes with you. And I feel as I've grown older, establishing more roots though within my culture, um, just with going to I call it indie camp growing up, celebrating my gotcha day within my family the day I came from the airport. Um, I think that helped me stay connected. Just being able to even have access to Indian events helps me stay rooted and educating myself, and being able to travel. Maybe it's not exactly to India, but I think being able to travel just helps me get rooted into different cultures and see that like I went if I grew up in India, I probably wouldn't have this opportunity, and being able to see different parts of the world, which I'm so grateful for. And
Mm.
one of the reasons I became a nurse was because of my story, and specifically a labor and delivery nurse. But I'm not one right now. But
Okay.
I think I wanted to be a part of people's story, and
Yeah.
something I think it's something I just didn't have, so I wanted to be a part of it. And um, yeah, just the beginning of the birth of their child.
Mm.
So maybe one
Wow,
day,
that's
but I'm not a labor and delivery nurse yet. So,
wow,
but
that's beautiful, Katie. I
yeah,
love that. That's it. I mean, I felt that it brings the joy and
mm-hmm,
your heart forward. By thinking about
yeah,
that you want to help women in
mm-hmm,
that perspective. And one of the things that I'm working with, I really would. I'm great in connecting with people,
mm-hmm,
worldwide and with
mm-hmm,
anyone in the world. So I've also been told, and that's something you and I can talk about off the camera,
mm-hmm,
but I've been seeing a classic record reader, and she told me that you have to help children to find their family
mm-hmm,
in the world, and that's why because you have to share love with the world,
yeah,
and that's what she told me to do. So I can truly see that for you,
mm-hmm,
somehow that you can help women's, in different ways,
mm-hmm,
because
yeah, yeah,
that's bring that heart up for you, you're passionate about, and I could see that it was lighting up your face just
yeah,
by
yeah,
having you saying it, which is so
mm,
beautiful. So thank you for bringing that forward, and
yeah,
please, yeah, move forward with it. So another thing, when you said that, I mean, you're 24 years old, and you're looking at your identity, and maybe finding your birth mom.
mm-hmm,
So another thing I want to touch base on, because and that can be just sharing my own life experience
mm-hmm,
that when I was in your age, because when I was in your age I was in a abusive relationship with a alcoholic guy,
mm-hmm,
and he turned me so much down because I was craving for love. I was craving for his love
mm-hmm,
because I felt that he was the only guy in the whole world that could love me, right? Which is not the truth, right?
mm-hmm,
So, but anyway, I went down really, really in a not in a present state, but anyway, I had to go to a psychologist, and he
mm-hmm,
asked me if I wanted to look into, my birth mom, and things like that. And I discovered an anger within me, which I didn't know that I had, because I
mm-hmm,
was just this quiet, loving, caring
yeah,
child when I was growing
yeah,
up, and I was not having any. But there was an anger within me that I was mad at my mom because she gave me up for adoption, and she abandoned me and rejected me. So um, yeah. So I started to talk having conversation with my parents about, finding my birth mom and things
Mhm.
like that. That was actually, it was not until 10 years later I actually was ready to go to India. But because then I was thinking when I was starting figuring out, find, information about my birth mom, then I said, wait a minute, what if she doesn't want to see me, right?
Mhm.
So I was having this whole scenario once more,
Yeah.
saying, okay, well, what if she's going to reject me, right? What if she, if some reason can't see me or want to see me, or
Right.
who knows, right?
Mhm.
So, but I have, because today I'm 50 years old and I have, came to a peace within myself that even in this lifetime I'm supposed to meet my
Mhm.
mother, it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I just gave out my belief that that's gonna, if it's supposed to happen, it will happen. If it's not supposed to happen,
Mhm.
then it's not gonna happen of some reasons, right? Then we're
Mhm.
probably gonna meet in some other lives. Um, but have you give some thoughts about, and I know it's new for you, and but have you give some thoughts about, how would it be? And of course it would be horrifying if she said that she doesn't want to meet up with you because you've been thinking about
Yeah.
her your
Yeah.
whole life,
Mhm.
and I'm sure she has too. But there could be some circumstances in India that's not making an option. Oh my god, the cat is coming here.
Mhm.
Cat is finnegan. Usually when I have a camera, she always coming. I want
Yeah.
to be there too. So, how are your thoughts about that? I mean, are you open to like being peace with, that, like, give it up to the universe and say, she's in India right now and she's in a good place and you're in a good place, that, can you find peace to say, okay, if it's meant for us to meet, it will happen,
Mhm.
right? Can you find peace with that? I mean,
Yeah.
if,
I think I think so. I think it would be hard though because it's like again, I'm the queen of whys. It'd be like why wouldn't you want to meet?
mhm,
I think it would be hard, but I think if it was for my ultimate protection or safety, if there's some safety issue, then that yeah, I would have peace with it. But yeah, I for now it'd be hard to see
mm,
like
yeah,
why would she not want to see her baby, one or her only baby or one of multiple babies or I don't know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And I understand that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and it is not. I'm not trying to say this is gonna happen at all. But I want the same thing for you that it for all adoptees that they
Hmm.
meet their birth
Yeah.
mom because what I believe is a common connection, and I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel it's a common connection that I was brought to my Danish family, and I feel it's a common connection that you were brought to your U.S. family.
Hmm. Yeah.
Despite sometimes it can be a challenge,
Yeah.
right, for us to accept the circumstances or how our life is.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I have a cat crawling around me here. I'm sorry. He's always like that. So, um, yeah. So, yeah, and I know in India is a very interesting country because they have all their systems and they have the caste system, but they are also
Hmm.
they're very closed in their
Yeah.
way of speaking about you know adoption and
Hmm.
adoptees, which I don't understand, right? Because I mean, India is such a beautiful country,
Hmm.
and I mean, but I guess by time they will open up, maybe some year, 10 years, I don't know. I was very fortunate to find out, and I can maybe help you with that, when we're off the camera. But I was very fortunate that we was when we were in Mumbai, we found out that there was some court paper. My
Oh.
parents had court papers
Mhm.
when they got me,
Mhm.
and that was the reason why I was delayed 3 months with Emma because the court papers wasn't finished.
Oh, yeah.
So, but we found some court papers in Mumbai at the municipality, which my parents had never seen
Oh, okay.
because where it was standing when I was born,
Mhm.
the time. Because I remember you said to me yesterday too that you don't know what time of the day you're born, and I didn't know until I went there, until I saw the court papers. And then I also found out that my mom was 20 years old when she had
Oh,
me.
wow.
So
Hmm.
yeah, and we didn't know that before. We actually went there and found those court papers. So there might be some opportunities for you for Explorer,
Yeah, I'd be
and
really
then
interested in that for sure.
yeah, because
Mhm.
when it comes to India, everything is registered.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
even though I mean when I went into the office, it was like walking into a movie, old movie, because there was no stacks of papers all the way up to the
Mhm.
roof, but everything was recorded down to every detail they could
Yeah.
put. Like I saw a book where there was the names of the parents that had children
Mm.
on the same day as me, the area of Mumbai where they were living, and the names of it. But
Oh, wow.
I didn't
Um,
know what my parents' name was, but and I couldn't get a copy of it because I didn't have a lawyer with me.
oh, okay.
So
Hmm.
yeah, so I actually have to leave
Interesting.
India. Where yeah, we first saw the very last day we were in India, and I have to leave Mumbai without having anything with me.
Mm.
But at least I got the court papers with me, and I got a
Mhm.
copy of that. But there might be some registration on your papers and things like that. But we can always,
Yeah.
speak about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so growing up in United States, and we talked a little bit about emotions.
Mhm.
What sorts and feelings beside what you already have
Mhm.
shared? Is there like anything that you want to share about? The how has the adoption story affected you for the
Mhm.
audience to listen what you have experienced. It can be challenges of relationships, it can be challenges in the school.
Mhm.
When we talk about emotions and thoughts and feelings, if
Mhm.
there's anything there you want to share.
Yeah. I think when people think of my adoption story, they're just like, "Oh, like that's amazing," and it is like it is very amazing. I think they see. I think a lot of my friends have this opinion that adoption that it's pretty easy. Like it's pretty straightforward, and it. I mean, to the core of it is like family adopts a child and now they're part of your family.
Yeah.
But now it's more than that, and I'm grateful to share more of my story
Yeah.
because more of the what goes behind me is my life. I mean, I'm very blessed right now and in life, and I don't take any of that for granted. But what I was mentioning before, it's a loss, like it's something I mean, if I ever see court papers or not, or journey back to India, make that discovery test, take a DNA test. It's something still that I won't know all the pieces to. And I remember specifically in my seventh grade science class, we did a DNA tree of
No.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so almost embarrassed because I couldn't trace me back, and I had to do my dad now. Like
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
did it off of his life, and I think I went home that day just feeling really upset. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's nothing wrong with the curriculum, but it was just like I felt embarrassed I couldn't trace my life
Yeah.
back, and
Yeah.
um but yeah, on the flip side, adoption is beautiful and it's been wonderful, and um, I'm really blessed with this life. It comes with some pain and rejection sometimes, and abandonment. I went through a pretty traumatic like friendship, best friend breakup. Um, and it just that was a few years ago, but it still resonates with me to this day because it was it was rejection, and it I wanted to work it out, but it just felt like she didn't, and so it felt like that same part of me just like giving and wanting to be loved and accepted, but not having that in return. So that's why I label it as that, because it really messed me up, and it still can have some sort of hold on me, but been better at working through that. So, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Rejection and abandonment, is something that because it comes in so many levels. It comes in so many pictures and
yeah,
experiences
yeah.
of life, because
Hmm.
rejection can be within a job, right? We
Hmm.
can feel rejected when we get a rejection of a job because we take it personal, right?
Hmm.
Or we can get ejected by a relationship with
Hmm.
a friend, like you just shared, or it can be a rejection of a boyfriend you're dating, or
Hmm.
things like that,
Yeah.
and I mean, it just have so many phases, and it has so many levels, rejection and abandonment, because it really comes down to the psychology behind it, right? Because when we are being born as adopted and we be taken away from our birth parents, then the psychology that is actually um, what you're saying in this, it's affecting our subconscious
Yeah.
mind, you know so, and it's not only affecting us when we are being born, but it's affecting us, because the first 7 years of your life is actually where you're being created,
Hmm.
right? And your mind and psychology. So for me, it's very clearly that it affected of this life term, because in different life stages, but just in different levels, depending on how old you
Hmm.
are. And and in that way, we need to, really love ourselves. So despite whatever is going to happen, or rejection, or what we experience in life, we still have the love within ourselves, so we're not dependent on other people, in that way, because we cannot adopt. Okay, we don't have our family in India, but we dependent on the family that we adopted too, right?
Hmm.
So we can have some kind of um, dependency of our parents, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it's hard work. It's not only us. I mean,
Yeah.
that need to love ourselves unconditionally, but that's
Hmm.
where it actually.
hear me? Oh, I think you're on mute. Are you able to hear me? Okay, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can just see you. Think try the mute unmuting. Can that? I can just see you. I can't hear you. Oh no. uh. Hmm. That's really weird. Hmm. Um. Well, let's see. That was really all of my story. Let's see. It's getting close to 3, so I um did you have any other questions you wanted to ask me or anything? No more questions? Oh. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on your talk show. Oh, sure. Um, let's see. Other to some advice for other adoptees. I would say to definitely stay in their roots with your culture, no matter what it is. Just don't forget that part of you. You're who you were created to be, and that's just part of your story. And no matter at what age you were adopted at, it it's hard regardless. But I would say regardless where you are, it's a blessing to truly be adopted and just to hold on to that and find a community. And I'm grateful that I was able to share my story today, and that I do have some friends who are adopted to go to, but you're not alone. And I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I have, and a good reminder to myself, is that we're not alone in this. So yeah. Yeah, it's so weird. But yeah, but thank you so much for having me today. Franjana, it means a lot to talk to you. So mhm. Yeah. I don't know how to fix the tech issue. But thank you. It means a lot. Yeah.